get out of this. What is this place?
First of all, could you present yourself to the people at home and your role in the development of the game?
Yep, my name is Carl Stewart and I'm the Global Brand Director in charge of Tomb Raider and Crystal Dynamics. I look after everything from overseeing all the franchise, branding, PR, marketing, and working with the team in the studio to help develop Tomb Raider.
Did you plan from the start to make an origin game of Lara Croft, or did this kind of grow into development?
So I think from the very beginning we always thought, let's put our flavor, our tint onto this new vision of Tomb Raider. We inherited Tomb Raider, of course, from Core Designs, as everybody knows, and from the time we inherited it, we continued the canon, which was brought into Legend and Earth and Underworld. But as we started making sort of Anniversary and Underworld, we started to look aside and think, we want to put our mark on Tomb Raider franchise. We want to reimagine the franchise for today's audience, and it was very important to us that instead of just continuing on and then possibly sort of diluting the franchise over time, is that we really put a hard stop after Underworld and said, let's try this out. Let's try and reimagine a new franchise out of something that's been around for a very long time, and you see what we have today.
Well, Tomb Raider has always been known for its diverse locations. Will you be guiding Lara through other environments again, or is the island like a big central hub?
So one of the important things that we set out to do at the beginning of the game, development of the game, is to try and create a location where we could see Lara grow, we could see a character arc evolve. With it being a reimagining, it's about seeing this young, innocent, naive girl on her very first adventure and kind of playing alongside of her as she goes through these massive changes. And our goal was always to be, at the end of the game, to really make you feel like I now know who Lara is. She's a Tomb Raider of the ages. So in doing that, we decided, rather than have her globetrotting, going from place to place and not really getting to know her, putting her in one persistent location like an island allows us to be able to build a story and have kind of a start, middle and end. She ends up on the island, she has to get off it, and then we tell the story of what happens all around and inside of there. So you're going to go on a journey with a young girl and literally see her come out the other side, somebody that feels a little bit more familiar, but you understand her in a very different way compared to you have understood Lara's of years gone by.
Well, Lara is no longer on a lonely journey. Her friends are also stranded on the island, correct?
Yes.
Does this mean we'll be able to work with friendly NPCs, or is this purposely done for the narrative aspect of the game?
So we do it for a couple of different ways, but most importantly is about the narrative of the game. When we come across this young girl at the very beginning of the game, we see things like fear, we see isolation, we see somebody who's afraid, doesn't know what's happened, and in some way feels it may be her fault. And as you start to play through the game, you start to meet the other player, the other characters that were on this ship. Some she knows very well, some she's only met on the ship, and as things get a little bit frayed, you start to see a side of Lara, how she talks to people with anger, with compassion, with a level of emotion. We start to see different facets of Lara come to life, and it helps you understand who she is with a little bit more personality and depth. It also changes the motivation of gameplay. When her friend is kidnapped at the beginning of the game, you're now motivated to want to save her. When you're nearly killed in the process, you realize that these people around you, they're not really there for you to have a conversation with. You have to fight to stay alive, and you have to do things which you wouldn't normally do in order to save your friends. So you get to see a very different side to a character. By having these characters there alongside of her, it's not that we're trying to sort of break the story off into different tangents. We're just trying to show a very unique facet to our character and how she evolves and grows.
Okay, well, Lara has to survive in this game. She's in a more severe state of danger. She's a fragile girl, actually. How does that implement in the gameplay? Because it goes way beyond just using medkits like in the previous games, I can imagine.
So it was very important to us that when we put the wrapper of survival around Tomb Raider, we made sure that it fit within our pillars. The smart resource for Lara, the dynamic traversal, which is kind of the movement and exploration, and then a combat. So we get to see our character perform in so many different ways. So with smart resource for Lara, we get to see how she's having to think about the world, how the situations around her are sometimes uncomfortable. When we show her first kill and how she's been attacked and she's forced to have to do something she's never done before, we start to experience the island, experience the character in a very unique and dynamic way. So with traversal, we now get to see her move around with a lot more freedom. And although we're not an open world game, we are a game where we've built these massive hubs to be able to allow the player to be able to kind of explore, have some freedom in spaces, and see how these pillars really play into this whole survival wrapper. To get back to the answer, the question is that we're not a sim game, we're not a simulator game where we want the player to constantly feel like they're chasing the next med kit or they're chasing a lifeline or water. We want the player to go on a journey of survival and feel like there's things in the narrative and the story that you have to do. So therefore you have to heal your injury. That's a given. But it's more about the psychological, sort of the side of it where you realize, okay, around now I do need to sort of get some sort of food and get some health and kill somebody for the first time. But really it's all about sort of the emotional survival and emotional journey that she goes on, which is more important to us, and that it's not about the sim side of it.
All right. Well, there was a lot of commotion concerning the rape scene, if you can remember. Did you expect such a heavy response, and how did the team deal with it?
So, as we said straight after that situation, unfortunately, it wasn't a misquote, somebody misspoke. Okay, that was a word that it's not in our vocabulary, it's not something that we ever want to go out of our way to say. Anybody who's played that scene has seen that that's not what happens. That's not the case whatsoever. What I think as a studio we've kind of learned is that we're trying to bring a level of emotion to the game which we as a gamer haven't done before, and certainly in some of the games that we've played we haven't seen it. And as a result of that, there's a little bit more interest and intrigue. People are analyzing things a little bit more, which is great. We absolutely love the fact that by bringing these emotions to the forefront of video games, we see them in movies and TV shows so many times over that we're kind of willing to push the boat out as much as we can to bring that level of emotion and immersiveness. I think the biggest thing for us is that 90% of the people who made the quote and it went viral had never played the game, certainly had never been interviewed by any of us. And I think for anybody who has played the game and really understood the journey that we're going on, they all pretty much understand that that's not what we're trying to do. There is close physical contact, there is an intimidating moment there, but it plays out after that scene when she makes that first kill. She moves on to be motivated to want to sort of survive and save her friends throughout the rest of the game. So I think it was an unfortunate thing to say, an unfortunate timing, but I think anybody who's played the game and anybody who sees what we're trying to achieve with the narrative kind of understands that it wasn't our intention to have that word be used in that way.
Okay, excellent. Well, what kind of an audience are you aiming for with this redefined Tomb Raider?
So I think there's a number of different audiences. One, the Tomb Raider fans. We're very conscious about the fans sort of seeing this and embracing this as an extension and a sort of new world of Tomb Raider. We've brought on a very strong team of people. A lot of the people who worked on this, probably 80% of the team, have worked on previous Tomb Raider games. So it's kind of very important to us in telling the fans that this isn't like we just made the game with a different studio. There's a lot of people who know what Tomb Raider is, have an affinity with Tomb Raider, and have continued to make sure that when they play it, they feel like they're playing a Tomb Raider game. But at the same time, we want to make sure that it becomes a little bit more mainstream. We want to show that Tomb Raider can go for a larger audience and show people that the immersiveness, the storytelling, the new systems that we've put in place, this is not the Tomb Raider of yesteryear. Certainly we'll have sort of the iconic moments, we'll have a character that feels familiar to players that have played Tomb Raiders in the past, but we also look at the fact that Tomb Raider had become very funneled. It had become a very specialist type of game. Movement, for instance, with sort of the traversal was very linear, very ledge to ledge, whereas we found that the competitive set had really started to branch out to free movement, dynamic movement. There was things we knew we needed to do. So from an audience standpoint, we want to make sure that, of course, first and foremost, is the Tomb Raider fans feel like this is truly a Tomb Raider game. Second one is that from a core game standpoint, people feel like they're playing a game which is of today. And then from a mainstream audience, it's accessible. People can pick up this game and feel like, I haven't had to have played the previous 9 titles or 8 titles to understand this. I can pick it up and I can start from a journey and I can be immersed into this world and play in this world in the way in which I haven't been able to do in past Tomb Raider games. All
right, and then to finish our interview, perhaps the most important question, when does the game finally come out?
So the game is due to ship on March 5th, 2013 on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and PC.
Okay, well thank you for your time and we're very much looking forward to the final product.